What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. We are live for WN365 Live. Yes, the first edition, the first live... Well, it's not the first live stream, of course, we've done here at Wrestle News 365, but it's a new show. It's something a little bit different. It's something a little bit extra to your Wrestle News 365 that you get on a daily basis here. Of course, you still get your news videos like went up earlier today. You still get your countdown videos, which went up, a couple of hours ago at this time. But as the post said the other day, this is why you always got to check out the YouTube page. This is why you always got to check out the post section, the post tab on the YouTube page for Wrestle News 365, because we made the announcement the other day that a brand new show was coming. It's a brand new year. It's 2026. That means new things, new innovations, new ideas, new concepts, and new shows. And that includes this show, which is WN365 Live. What is WN365 Live, you say? Well, it's exactly what it is in the title. It is a live stream that is going to be taking place 3 days a week. That being Mondays, Wednesdays, like today, and Fridays. What is the time for that? Well, it's going to be at 8 p.m. UK time until really whenever. You know, it might be an hour, it might be an hour and a half, it might be 2 hours, it might even be longer, depending on what's going on. What's going to be covered on this show 3 times a week? Well, I'll tell you, it can be news stories, it can be social media posts, it can be trending topics, it can be, look, we're just going to get together, we're going to watch a YouTube video together, or there's a video online of this match, or there's a video online that someone's created about this, we're going to watch that together. There's so many different things. It could just be a gaming stream. It could just be, you know what, guys, it's Friday, there's not much going on in the world of wrestling, let's just play SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. It could be something like that. So it's a new show, as I mentioned, and it's just going to kind of be a live stream 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The only time the schedule will change is if, for instance, like this week, we didn't do it on Monday. Why? Because we were live anyway doing a Raw watch-along and a post-show. And we won't be live for this show on Friday because we'll be live anyway doing a Friday Night SmackDown watch-along and post-show because SmackDown's in London here in the UK. So sometimes with things like that, it'll get moved, but we'll still be live 3 times a week anyway. And of course, as some people know, when it comes to the UV commitments, the United View commitments, if there happens to be a Manchester United game that's for whatever reason on a Monday evening or a Wednesday evening or a Friday evening, not that there's going to be much of that for the rest of the season. So for at least like 6 months, you know, Man United are playing once a week at the weekend, so we don't really have to worry too much about that. But I wanted to do something a little bit extra to what we have here on the channel. Like I said, I know obviously we do the news videos, we do the countdown videos. I wanted to have a more regular streaming presence. Of course, we do the live watch-alongs and we do the live post shows, but that's about it, which means it's kind of once, twice a month kind of situation. I thought I want to be building this community up even more. I want to be speaking to you guys more often. I want to be interacting with you guys more often, and I want to add another aspect to what we do. The news videos are very much just down the middle, no editorializing. I think the slogan for that is literally just the news. You know, I can't remember what it is. Just news or something like that. It was pro wrestling news. That's it. I forget whatever catchphrase we came up with. And that's not going to change. I really like the format of that, of just not editorializing, just giving you the news, kind of aggregating it all in one place and just giving it you, and you can come up with your opinions. I really like that. And same with the countdown videos. These streams are going to be maybe a little bit more opinionated, a little bit more reactive, and you know, and it can be anything. It can kind of be anything kind of scenario. So I'm really looking forward to it. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you are new. That's what I've got to get. I'll tell you what, guys, I've been spending the last couple of days just kind of getting all of these different things together. You know, you try and anticipate as many things as possible that you'll need when you're doing live streaming. I've been doing it for several years now at this point. And we've got lots of different studios and lots of different, you know, virtual sets that we can choose from, which I'm really excited about. And I'm quite pleased with how they've all turned out. Even this one you can see behind me. Got the. Look, it's Got the logo in the background, and everything. It's very fancy. Yes, and also we've got WN365 roster appreciation scrolling. I think it's pretty much on every single scene here. So if you're a member of the WN365 roster, there's only one tier. Maybe we might go to a different kind of tier system in the future. But if you are a member of the WN365 roster, you will be featured on all of these shows. All of these live streams, your name will be scrolling on the screen or be on the screen in some place. So for instance, you can see there all of our members of the roster like Jason, David, United Love, Soup, Austin's in there, Jamie's in there, Harry's in there. Your name's going to be scrolling at the bottom of the screen because you guys make it happen. So if you're not a member, you can become so. Links in the video description. You can click the join button. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content and perks, which is exactly what this is. And I think also when we do, like maybe even on these kind of streams when we're watching videos, we might make the chat like members only at that point, kind of thing as well. So there's loads of different things. That's what I'm really excited about. We can really, experiment and look at all of these things as much as possible when they go. So, but that is something I'm going to need. So I'm going to write that down because there probably will be things that I go, oh, I need that. So, I need a subscriber box, don't I? Got to remember the subscriber box. So that'll be on there for the next one, which will still be next Wednesday. Big up in the chat. You can see here. Comments can come up on the screen as well. Said I'm liking the new background. Just one of many. We'll move on. Right, what I do want to talk about, you would have maybe seen it in the title and on the thumb. There's a lot of talk about TNA wrestling. Now, speaking of being live, I am going to be live tomorrow for TNA Impact, a watch-along. They're premiering on AMC. And I'm going to be live for that. I believe over here in the UK, I'm under the impression anyway that you can watch the shows on live, via their TNA Plus streaming service, and I think also their YouTube channel, or one or the other. And so I'll be doing a watch along and a post show tomorrow because it's going to be a big show. But obviously on the horizon with them, airing on a bigger network. There's all of this discussion, isn't there, about how many viewers are they going to do? And being on a bigger network, being that they're getting, I think it's $10 million a year for their media rights deal, is there a possibility that TNA Wrestling can overtake All Elite Wrestling and become the second biggest pro wrestling company in the world? Well, let's go to a bit here about just how many viewers can maybe be expected for this premiere show. I saw this article and I wanted to discuss this here. It was Eric Bischoff talking about the TNA viewership on AMC. Someone, of course, who has a history not only with WWE and AEW for that matter, but also TNA. He was once an executive producer of the show. He was also, I guess that makes him executive in the company. I don't know specifically what his title was. I think it was executive producer. So, talking about this, he had some interesting things to say. And let me know what your predictions are for that first AMC show in terms of viewership. Bear in mind that now the Nielsen new Big Data Plus paneling system for measuring, television ratings, viewership, and key demo ratings has been absolutely obliterated. Pro wrestling viewership. But it says here, with TNA's first episode of Impact on AMC taking place this Thursday, that being tomorrow, many within the wrestling industry have started to predict the viewership that the debut show will draw on the cable network. And WWE Hall of Famer Eric Bischoff was next to outline his expectations for TNA's first rating during a recent edition of 83 Weeks. Quote, "It's just a wild guess without seeing any promotion outside of the network for it. I would say AEW's right now around 600,000 on average, right? I mean, to be honest, sometimes that's a bit of a good number with AEW recently for Dynamite, but let's go with that, yes, 600,000. Roughly, I think they'll be in the 350,000 range, maybe 4. That's my guess. Now, he also said, Bischoff continued by expressing his disappointment towards the advertisement for TNA on the AMC network, having compared it to AEW's promotional strategy on TBS, which he believes is a successful model. He said, quote, "The one thing I'll say about AEW and their relationship with Turner, there's a hell of a lot of promotion across Turner, all the way across the Turner platforms for AEW, and it's being done, quite frankly, the way it should be done. But if AMC hasn't really quite made that bet, they're not really quite interested in going too far promoting it. And to me, that to me is also a telltale sign of how invested is the network really. Are they just rolling a dice and throwing it up against the wall to see if it's going to stick? Or are they really invested in making it work?" Now, of course, AJ Styles has already been announced for tomorrow on Impact. There were, reports about him, TNA's initial plans of maybe wanting him to wrestle on the show, compete for the world title against Frankie Kazarian. We know he's just going to be there. We know there is a TNA world title match on that show, in which Mike Santana is facing off against the current champion Frankie Kazarian. But as far as what Bischoff said on that, as far as the prediction about how many viewers it will do, I'm not in the best place to really say with this kind of stuff, to be honest. Over here in the UK, I mean, we cover ratings here on the channel and viewership information and ratings information. Every single year, to be fair, it becomes less and less important, I think. I push back to the people that will say, "Oh, ratings have no relevance nowadays in pro wrestling." No, they're not important whatsoever, because they always will be. Ratings and viewership will always be important, because it's still a very popular metric for judging how successful or engaging your show is. It's not the be-all and end-all of anything. It's like this YouTube stream that I'm doing right now is the amount and what you perceive to be successful, and who ultimately perceives what success is. Some people will view YouTube streams or YouTube videos as success based on how many people are tuning in. How many people are tuning in? How many people, I don't know, some will look at it as how many people click the like button. Some people will look at it as it's how much revenue you make. It's how many super chats or memberships you get. Other people will look at it as a success of just getting to the point where you can put on a show and put together a show and put, the framework together where you can host a show. That in itself is a success. And it's the same applies to pro wrestling, right? It's the same that applies to pro wrestling, that it depends who you're asking, I think. When it comes to certain executives, they'll look at just the key demo number. What did we do in the demo? Why is that important? Well, that's the number we give to advertisers, and that's how much, depending on how high that number is, or what certain subsection of people are watching the show, and how many of them are watching the show from that subsection category there, that's how much they'll be willing to pay to advertise on it. And if that's high, then we can make a lot of money, and it doesn't care how many people overall are watching us, just that section. Are they tuned in? Are they locked in? Others will look at success of just like, I don't care how many people watched it on TV. How many people watched it in the building? Was it sold out? That's a success to me. Others will look at it as, what was the reaction on social media? Forget how many people were watching it live on television. Boring. People don't watch it on TV nowadays. They watch it online, legally or illegally. What are people saying on social? Are the clips going viral? Are they picking up, are people talking about it? That's a success. So the point being is, there's many different ways to skin a cat, right? There's many different ways to judge, I think, how a pro wrestling show is a success. When it comes to ratings and viewership, it still does have a part to play. Maybe not so much nowadays with cord cutting and streaming, but it is still important, and people will still be discussing how many people tuned in for that first Impact show, right? They just will. But I don't know what AMC usually does. That's the thing. I don't know what AMC usually does. I think TNA Impact. Let me see if I can have a look at this. TNA Impact weekly viewership number. I think I'm just having a look here. Yeah, I think usually, I'm not. This is kind of a bit of a guess. Usually on Access TV, live, live broadcast, not because it's taped, but you get my point. When it's actually there, I think usually it's between 100 and maybe on a really good episode. I think the record might be 150,000, something like that, on Access TV. Now on AMC, they'll obviously do higher. It's a more well-known network. I think it's available in like double the amount of homes that Access TV is in. So even if we use that metric and it's the premiere episode, I think Bischoff's probably in and around the right figure there. He says 350,000, maybe 4. Something a bit like that. Can we look that up on Google? AMC average viewership. Okay. I tell you what, that is quite interesting. That is interesting. Let me see if I can get that up on the screen for you guys. There you go. Right, so I just typed into Google AMC average viewership. Now, this comes from what website? US TV DB, which I'm assuming is US TV database. AMC is currently the 24th most popular channel on TV, watched by a total number of 270,000 people. I guess that's average during prime time, as of the average yearly audience measurement for the period ending December 31st, 2025. So these are recent numbers, by the way, as well. So their average in prime time is 270,000 people, which is down 15% from last year, as I mentioned. Television numbers are going down anyway. So, I mean, that is an interesting number then. So what we're saying then, that number that they might get on Thursday, again, Bischoff's probably on the money there. It's around, it'll probably be above average. 300, about 350, 400. I'm gonna go with. I think that's right in and about it. I think. Which, look, some weeks recently, that's what Dynamite's been doing. I mean, Dynamite did for the New Year's Eve special, or the New Year's Smash special. What was that? I think that was like 400,000. So it could be close in that regards for the first episode, and then you forget Dynamite's 7 years in at this point. But I don't know if it does more than the week's Dynamite or anything like that. I don't think that's a thing. As far as the question, can TNA Wrestling overtake AEW as the number 2 promotion? I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible. But the notion that is anywhere close to happening, or that would happen anytime soon, is just way off. I think the numbers were put out there previously that these are sort of reported figures. I don't even know if these have been officially reported. The TNA media rights fee was about $10 million, which is nothing to be sniffed at, certainly. And that's $10 million, I think, annually. $10 million annually. For comparison, AEW's media rights deal that they have with Warner Brothers Discovery gets them about $3 million a week. So you're looking at a situation where AEW in a month would bring in, from a media rights perspective, more revenue than TNA's media rights deal would in a year. So there are still long ways to go, I think, from that point. Anthem, who owns the TNA, is a very rich company. Of course, WWE is affiliated now, so they can put stars on that show if they want to, and they can build TNA up, and they've got first refusal. If TNA or Anthem decide to sell TNA Wrestling, WWE's got first refusal on buying them, which I think in the future probably is going to end up happening. So it might be WWE's best interest to build them up as much as they can, and then maybe they purchase them later on. I'm not sure. But so the answer is yes, but not anytime soon. And I think both companies have to go in opposite directions for that to happen, which is AEW needs to take quite a serious nosedive, i.e. the deal with Warner Brothers Discovery at the end of the contract, which is 2027. Warner Brothers Discovery don't pick it up, and then AEW's without a TV deal, and they're trying to figure out everything that's going on. And at that time, TNA soaring. That's in itself is like a couple of years off. And I think that would be worst case scenario for AEW, and I don't really see that. There's a lot of confusion, isn't there, at the moment about Warner Brothers. Are they going to Netflix? Is Paramount still trying to go after them? I think Paramount was something that they were like suing to try and make it happen. I think Warner Brothers end up with Netflix, for the record. And actually, that's probably the best deal for AEW, because if Netflix does indeed purchase Warner Brothers Discovery, they're purchasing one half of that company. So Warner Brothers Discovery are splitting into two publicly traded companies. I can't remember the exact names, but effectively one is like streaming and TV back catalog, and I think a lot of the movie catalogs and all that kind of stuff, and the other is like the television networks. And Netflix, if they do purchase Warner Brothers, they're purchasing the company which is the streaming side of it and the film side of it, which is of course not TBS and not TNT, but it is HBO Max. So it would affect AEW in the sense of their streaming home would have merged with WWE streaming home, and we know who's going to win that race. But as far as AEW being on like TBS and TNT, it wouldn't necessarily affect them that much. And I think then that new company, that Discovery company, if you will, they'd be quite, one, you would think flush for money. Secondly, they'd be quite desperate for content, cheap content, which is what pro wrestling is, that delivers good numbers. So I don't think AEW has anything to be worried about in that regard. So whilst it's still possible, I don't think it happens anytime soon, and I'm not sure if it happens. But at the same time, as has been very, very apparent with pro wrestling, folks, like, who knows? If you had said this to me a decade ago, that there would be, 3 US-based top pro wrestling companies, with WWE being the biggest, of course, and they'd be on Netflix, and they've been sold, by the way. Vince McMahon's no longer in charge, and he no longer owns the WWE. I'd go, what are you talking about? Secondly, if you then went, and there's a second promotion, it's not as big as WWE, but like it's big, and it's on TBS and TNT. They do good pay-per-views, and for the TV's a bit indifferent each week in terms of viewership and tickets sold, but in terms of pay-per-views, they do very well on pay-per-views, sell a lot of pay-per-views. And for instance, I was doing some research for one of the videos earlier on, looking at last year's Revolution pay-per-view. They sold like 11,000 tickets. I'd be like, oh bloody hell, that's not bad going, is it? And this is a second company, it's owned by a billionaire. Wow. And you go, and TNA's still around. I go, TNA's still around. You go, yeah, they're actually working with WWE now. I'd be like, what? And they'd be like, and actually, they've just probably got their biggest TV deal since they got kicked off of Spike back in 2014. They're on the same network that did, the Walking Dead and Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I'd be like, that's good for them. That's not bad going at all. So the pro wrestling landscape is arguably as healthy as it's been at a national level. On the indies, maybe it's taken a hit because the nationals have got so much stronger. But I think that's good for pro wrestling. How can it not be good for pro wrestling? Kadeem says TNA will still be number 3 because they made bad decisions that ruined the company a decade ago under Dixie Carter. I mean, TNA, they have got such a unique history, don't they? For all intents and purposes, TNA should have probably been out of business a long, long time ago. With, like you say, the amount of mistakes that they made, financial mismanagement. I mean, some of the stories about how bad it was financially in sort of 2013, 2014, 2015, in and around that time. Some of the stories are just ridiculous. I mean, with talent not getting paid and purposely putting incorrect dates on, FedExes that had, specific checks in there. So people got checks late so they couldn't cash them and all this stuff, right? That is a company that should be, out of business fairly soon, and would imply it's going to be out of business pretty soon. and they've managed to survive over and over, and also they've been able to survive and then, continue to try and build themselves back up and grow to a point where you've got a network paying them millions of dollars to put their product on it on a weekly basis. That's pretty remarkable. Not many pro wrestling companies have been able to do that. It kind of goes against sort of pro wrestling history. Usually when the company's in that kind of nosedive, they tend not to be able to get out of it, or when someone buys it, it goes away, or it never reaches the height it once was. Now, TNA has not reached the height that it once was. People forget, for all of the LOL TNA stuff and the stigma and that goes with it, TNA was a big company in the mid 2000s. It was nowhere near the size of WWE, and frankly, whilst it did better viewership on Spike at the time, just television did better viewership in general, but they were never really able to do what AEW has been able to do in its existence, which is weekly, be on the road, sell tickets, and also from a pay-per-view perspective, TNA never was able to do what AEW has done on pay-per-view. TNA's pay-per-views would be bought by hardly anyone, and of course all of the majority of it anyway would be in the Impact Zone, which actually had its nice kind of element to it. But it still would have a long way to go till it was reaching those heights again, TNA. But with this relationship now being on AMC and having the WWE influence, I guess it's possible. I guess that's possible. But you are right, Kadeem, in the sense of that the amount of damage that was done by the way that company was managed in the sort of 20. Well, yeah, certainly sort of around that 2010 period when Hogan and Bischoff came in, because if you listen to Jeff Jarrett, whether you believe what he says or not, he says that around sort of 2008, 2009, TNA was actually turning a profit, and then the talent budget got very, very big, and the return on investment was very much not there. Big up Jamie as well, as in the chat, one of our mods, one of our members. As you'll be able to see, not only by Jamie's badge, but also the scroller. Jamie's a part of that scroller at the bottom on the screen, and says, WWE, how much money we make today. Wow. That is one of the big criticisms of WWE, isn't it? It's, not necessarily WWE, but more TKO. TKO's, the way they're running the company, the way they view, I wouldn't even say their view of pro wrestling, because I think they view it in a similar vein to Vince McMahon. As much as Triple H and Nick Khan have basically unbanned the word pro wrestling in WWE, I still think it's a case of they don't really view themselves as professional wrestling. They don't. They view themselves as this kind of, I don't know, like carnival, circus / sporting entity, sporting league is kind of how they view it. And we come to town, you should, and by the way, you've got to pay us to come to your town, because they want site fees. They get site fees for most PLEs, but they also want site fees for Raws and SmackDowns. So they want, you pay us money to come to your town. We've got a fan base that we know will pay to come and see us. So if you pay us enough money, fans will come from far and wide. They'll travel, they'll book hotels, they'll go to restaurants, they'll use, whatever amenities are in sort of the local area. And we'll make you some money while we also make a ton of money as well. So basically, we're just going to sort of squeeze the consumer for all they're worth. And that's how they view it. that is how they view it. And part of me sometimes wonders, I must say, sometimes you see these stories. I remember there was one when they were doing Clash at the Castle, and it was in Scotland. And so, sometimes when you're over here in the UK and you see these ticket prices, of hundreds of dollars, it doesn't sometimes register if you're in another country, because you just assume, you go, well, that looks like a lot of money, but I don't really know what the currency conversion is, so maybe it's somewhat reasonable, and where are these seats? And you almost try and give them the benefit of the doubt. But when I saw it in the currency that I'm more familiar with, i.e. pounds, and these were tickets for Clash at the Castle in Scotland, and they were like top of the arena, top of the top, like properly top of the arena. And let me move this here, actually. There you go. So you can see new subscribers and super chats will come in. You can see them there. It was top of the arena, and it was something like ridiculous. I want to say like close to £1,000, and I was just blown away by that, because I did think to myself, like, who can afford that? You know what I mean? You can. I mean, if you're going by yourself, all right, maybe, you know, and like you save up all a year to do it. But my memories, when I'm certainly younger, was my dad taking me to the shows, or my dad taking me and a couple of my friends to the shows, or something like that. And I was thinking, if the way you watch pro wrestling is with your family or with your friends or whatever, who could afford to drop, like, let's say it is a family, and you've got, you know, 2 young children that like to go watch wrestling, including yourself, you'd be paying something like $2 or $3 grand to go watch a WWE show, which it's not as even if it's a guarantee of quality you're going to see as well. You know, with the WWE PLE model as it is, you could be going to see a 4 or 5 match show and going, particularly those sort of shows like Clash at the Castle. It seems like you're seeing a big show that's going to be really, you know, newsworthy or moment-worthy or event-worthy. You're just going to see some matches that's kind of dressed up for television a little bit. And I do wonder, when you see those stories of going, bloody hell, who's paying that? Every single time that TV comes on to watch the show or watch the PLE, or you go on Netflix to watch the PLE or what have you, it's pretty much always filled, pretty much always there. And I don't think, you know, I don't think they're comping loads of tickets. There'll be some seat fillers, but more than enough. It's near enough sold out or close to it. And I suppose that's the problem. As long as there is someone willing to pay, then the prices will be what they are. You know, we have seen that trend in recent, maybe the last year, is you see a lot on like the last week or in the days before these TV events and the pay-per-views, people will wait, and rightfully so. They'll know they're going. You know what I mean? They'll know that they're going to these shows. They'll be like, I'm going to go to watch. I'll be going to watch SmackDown on Friday in Buffalo. Have you got a ticket yet? No. Why? Well, it's too expensive, and I'll wait until the day off. There'll be some available, and I'll see what's available. The prices will come down. I'll get a better seat, not so high up, maybe in the middle, for like half the price or a quarter off. And the amount it is, you'd be saving yourself some pretty decent money while doing it. So, yeah, but that's until, like I say, until there is until there's people that aren't willing to pay it, then, you know, that's just what it's going to be, isn't it? Unfortunately. If you haven't already clicked the like button, we're up to 24 likes. Let's see if we can get the likes up. And as I mentioned, be sure to subscribe if you are new. I wish I did have my subscribers thing. That is an oversight. That is an oversight for me. But like I said, this is a new show, so we're figuring it out as we go along. I did see, I don't know if you guys saw this as well, that I wanted to show you. It was basically about the original planned winner of Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. So if you haven't seen this, basically the story is that at one point it looked like we were going to be getting Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns 3 at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. Now, we thought we were getting that because going into Survivor Series, we were told that at the end of Survivor Series, basically, you're going to know the 2 main events for WrestleMania, and WWE's not going to be subtle about it, so you'll know. And Survivor Series ended with Bron Breakker pinning CM Punk. So people said, right, we're getting Bron Breakker versus Punk at WrestleMania, which we still could get. And then there was this stare-off between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns saying to Cody, we're not teaming up again anymore. And Cody's like, fair enough, right. And everyone assumed that, right, that's the trilogy, isn't it? You had Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. Roman Reigns won. You had Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Cody Rhodes won, finished the story. am I going to be getting the third match in the trilogy? Whether it's going to be for the title like the first 2 times, does it need to be? Is this sort of a more modern day version of The Rock versus Steve Austin kind of thing? First 2 matches for the title, third one, it's just about the trilogy and about respect and what have you. But then we got the report this week, the match is off. The match is off, and the plans changed last Wednesday, according to Dave Meltzer. And it was because last Wednesday the decision was made to put the WWE Championship on Drew McIntyre, something that Drew and Cody actually pushed for on SmackDown. So this match was off, and we don't know what Rhodes and Reigns are going to be doing at WrestleMania. Now, this thing sort of came up about who was, possibly set to win. This came from Ibo. Now, obviously, I know Ibo's got the track record is spotty with some stuff that was going on last year, but I've always interested in what he said. He said, I'll get right to the Cody Rhodes Mania report now. Here's the bottom line. The original direction was literally simply Cody is going to hold this deal until Mania, and then Roman was going to go to Mania and beat him. That's what they were going to do. So Roman Reigns was going to go on to WrestleMania and defeat Cody Rhodes and I guess become the WWE Champion again. Now, apparently those plans changed, blah, blah, blah. He says, now here's the deal. People in WWE are very aware of Roman's status currently in the sense that he's like a living legend and he's so important to WWE, but he's not a full-time guy. And there'll be some complications that come with him holding the championship as a part-time babyface. That's fucking insane. So they tried to come up with ways to maybe circumvent this, to make it more interesting, to spice up the road to Mania. Triple H wanted to throw some surprises in there. He wanted maybe to throw some monkey wrenches into the road. He wants Cody to win. And so one of the things he devised, Drew McIntyre was the guy who pitched this, and Drew was smart because now what he realized is I'm pitching things that can benefit me, but I know it will go through because it will benefit the overall promotion and what they're trying to do with their big thing. The plan as of last week was Drew McIntyre was going to be the middleman in this Cody Roman story. The idea was going to be there. And I will say, like, Ibo, at this point, when it's like this long, this is when it gets into, I don't think this is a report. This sounds very like this is a theory. You know what I mean? This is a theory. Because once you get into Drew's thinking this because you think he knows that this will happen and he thinks this. And you're like, well, you're not inside his head. You know what I mean? So this is very much a theory as opposed to a report. But he says the idea was going to be Drew McIntyre was going to hold the championship. It was going to lead to Cody Rhodes shifting his character ever so slightly. They were going to play around with the idea that did he attack Jacob Fatu? Did he not? Is Cody turning heel? Is he not? They're going to play around with this without actually doing it. Jacob Fatu is going to be a tweener on the show. If you're noticing you're not hearing a lot of Roman Reigns, it's because he wasn't going to be on TV for a lot of this shit. He's a part-timer. The bottom line is what I believe they were going to do is play around with all these elements. Once again, what I believe, this bit here. So already, I think the idea that this was presented as a report is not totally accurate because it's not a report. This is just a theory. The bottom line is what I believe they were going to do is play around with all these elements, all these moving parts. Roman Reigns was most likely going to challenge Drew McIntyre and beat Drew McIntyre at some point in this process, and then he was going to face a challenging Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. So we'll see how that goes, but that's what Paul Levesque was trying to pull off here. Now, there's a lot there, isn't there? My goodness me, there is a lot there when it comes to the theories involved in all of that. Where do I start? Where do I start? Where do I start with that? Okay. When it comes to Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania again, do I think that the match is off just because Drew McIntyre won the WWE Championship last Friday on SmackDown? No, I don't. I don't think that match is off because of that. It might be off just in the sense that they've changed their mind and they're now going with something different. This is WWE. I mean, they've got precedent with this on the road to WrestleMania. Every pro wrestling company does. Also, they've got precedent when it comes to the Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns storyline of changing their minds, right? If you remember back to WrestleMania 40, it was going to be Roman Reigns versus The Rock. Until it wasn't. And even at the time, I still think there were people within WWE that were pushing for it to be Cody, and it becomes a whole different kind of situation. So just because Drew's won the championship, I don't think we have a situation whereby, So this, so they're going in a completely different direction. There is plenty of time to go. I mean, I grew up on watching WWE in the 90s, where the person who was going to defend the championship at WrestleMania wouldn't even be decided until like the month before. That's sometimes why the February pay-per-view was so worth checking out. Whether it be Elimination Chamber or No Way Out or St. Valentine's Day Massacres, because legitimately the title changed hands a bunch of times because they couldn't figure out what they were going to do for WrestleMania until like 5 or 6 weeks before. So just because Drew McIntyre's won the WWE Championship on one of the first episodes of SmackDown in 2026, I don't think that necessarily means the match between Roman and Cody is off at WrestleMania. I think that, first, I said this the other day, that I think that the match doesn't need the title. I think that, like I said, I think it looks similar to an Austin versus Rock scenario from the 2000s, whereby, okay, the first 2 matches are over the championship. The Rock versus Stone Cold, WrestleMania 15. First time they faced off in the main event of WrestleMania. That's for the championship. But as far as, and then the next one, of course, WrestleMania 17, that time around, they're both baby faces. In the first one, Rock was a heel, Austin was the baby face. But in WrestleMania 17, they're both baby faces. Austin, of course, is being off with the neck injury. Rock's an even bigger star than he was the first time around, even though he was the top heel in the company at that point. You know, you have a situation whereby, you know, he's even bigger. And then the third match is, you know, perfectly kind of dovetails the whole trilogy. It's at that point, it's not about titles. It's just about who's the best. It's about The Rock trying to beat Austin because he hadn't done it. Then The Rock's back to being a heel. Austin's a babyface, and he's in the final run of his career. And I think this one could be similar, whereby I don't think Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns needs a championship. And I don't think it needs to have the championship to main event the show, particularly when you've got 2 main events, Saturday and Sunday. One of them can have a championship on the line. The other one can just be Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. That's big enough match as it is. So just because Cody's not champion, I don't think that is off. I understand what Ivo's trying to sort of suggest there, saying it could just be this kind of long-term play where maybe the title's going on to Drew because Drew's going to be dropping it to Roman, and then Roman's going to face Cody again. But that bit at the start where Ivo effectively was sort of saying that Roman would beat Cody at WrestleMania, I just don't buy that. You know, I don't. Where did he say it again here? Cody's going to then Roman was going to Mania and going to beat him. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, look, Roman Reigns, massively popular. And he even alludes to it later on in the article. Why you would put the Undisputed WWE Championship on Roman Reigns at this stage, at this point. Like, at least when they did it the first time, you know, when he became Universal Champion and he was having that, you know, huge long title run. Even when he won both titles at WrestleMania 38 against Brock Lesnar, he was full-time at that point. It was different during the pandemic, but he was full-time for the pandemic. And then coming out of the pandemic, he was full-time. He was Universal Champion. When he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 38, he was full-time. And then what happened was, like, a couple of weeks after WrestleMania, he signed that new deal with WWE, and that new deal with WWE made him a part-time talent. His number of appearances was significantly reduced. So it's not like they put the title on him being a part-time talent. That's just what it evolved into. And I think they fell into the same situation they had with Brock, which they found out that actually a part-time heel champion can be workable. It makes the championship feel more special. It makes the person feel special. But eventually, you kind of need that presence on the show every single week of the top champion. That's how pro wrestling shows have worked. But they can make it work with a heel. That's my point there. With a babyface, I just don't think that's possible. I don't. You know, it's even without a title, it's difficult enough to explain why they keep disappearing, isn't it? They have to come up with a reason a lot of the time. If you're a heel, they don't even need to come up with a reason. They can just go, well, he's decided to go away because he's got a special contract and he's not going to be coming back for a while. When you're a babyface, it doesn't look good that you're not showing up. So they have to write you off TV, or you have to quietly disappear because you're filming something. You're going to have to, you know what I mean? So that's difficult enough as it is, let alone then going into a situation whereby, you're the champion. If that title is still exclusive to SmackDown as well, a 3-hour show, which last year was not a great show at all. So much so that they're calling up all of these NXT talents to the main roster. A bunch of them are going to SmackDown because they need talent and they need something different, and seemingly they're not doing a draft. So why you would then put the championship on someone that's just not going to be there that often, that to me just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I don't buy that part of the report. Like I said, I don't even buy it's necessarily completely off. I don't know if we can say that it's completely off. I think that it still could very much be on. I think it's just a case of WWE just keeping their options open as well. Things are very fluid. We did see that last year. And it's a bit of a weird one. I know that WWE Unreal, the second season comes out. Is it next week? The second season comes out. Oh, it might be the week of the Rumble, actually. So that's a couple of weeks' time. And I know that, when it came out, the first season, and they showed the creative team meetings and the pitch meetings and what have you, and we saw all the whiteboards, didn't we? We saw all the whiteboards, and we saw how WWE book these shows and operate. And we saw how different the WrestleMania card turned out being from what was originally planned. And that was a lot of people pointed that to as a bit of a gotcha to WWE, going, all right, look, you're not telling these long overarching stories. You are booking relatively week to week, and you are pivoting, and you are making changes. And as much as you say that you don't listen to, Nick Khan says, don't listen to the people on social media when it comes to your booking. They do. Which isn't a bad thing. This is the thing. At any other time, pointing out that you book like month to month, you've got some longer term plans, but some things you do change, and some things you do have to, change because they're not working, or someone gets hurt, or you have a better idea, or things evolve. That's just how pro wrestling works. That's not really a revelation. That's just how that's the industry. If anything, it's one of the unique points of pro wrestling. If you're filming a TV show or a film, you film it months in advance, and once you put it out, people got to like it or they don't like it. They can't just the next day go, all right, let's refilm this bit, or let's pivot. Like, that storyline, that sucked. Let's do something a bit different. In pro wrestling, that's the beauty. Is you can do it one week, and if it works, you go, right, let's do that again next week, but even bigger and better. If it doesn't work, you can change it. That's what the beauty of it is. The problem is that under Paul Levesque, they've played up this idea that they've got this really long-term sort of like 2-3 year vision, and they block these things out months and months and months ahead of time, and years in advance of where they're going to be going and what they're going to be doing. And that Unreal show just kind of exposed that to not be true. And last year's Creative exposed that to not be true. They're like any other pro wrestling company in that they go month to month, in some cases week to week. It is what it is. So that was reason, I suppose, for the gotcha. So when it comes to Reigns and Cody, I think it's just in that same territory. It's probably still on the board for WrestleMania. Maybe it's in a different pen than it was a couple of weeks ago. Maybe they're going, right, we'll see where this Drew stuff goes, and we'll see where we're at coming out of the Rumble, and then maybe we'll figure things out. You have to remember WrestleMania next year is in Saudi as well, and with it being in Saudi, there is a lot of money on the line and a lot of big matches possibly that the Saudi PIF will want. And maybe if they don't think they can, say, do Roman Reigns versus The Rock or Cody Rhodes versus The Rock, maybe they might go, right, we should probably save this one, the third match in the trilogy, for next year. Let's do that for next year. Let's not waste it this year because we're going to need matches for next year. So I think I don't see it as being totally off at this point. I think it's just in consideration with a lot of other ones in consideration there as well. Beep says, AEW and TNA are both number 2. They both can be number 1 if WWE keeps doing what they're doing. They will not be the number 1. They will not be the number 1. WWE, in terms of size, reach, brand recognition, that's another thing. When WWE, they'll just always be number one because they've just got so much time on their sides. WWE, you can go to people that have barely any idea what pro wrestling is. Like, not even a clue. Maybe they have heard of it or seen it once. They will know what WWE is. So when you go, have you ever seen wrestling? They'll go, what, WWE? When I've got some football on in the background here, Arsenal versus Chelsea. If some of them get in a bit of a scuffle, one of the commentators might go, oh, look, they're doing some WWE. So even when it comes to if the product's good, or ticket sales, or ticket prices, or anything like that, it's kind of irrelevant because WWE's just been in the zeitgeist. They've just been around for forever, for the longest time. They're the last of the territories to basically be around. They were the survivors of that era. They go back to, what is it, like the 40s or something? They've been around for 100 years nearly. So no pro wrestling company will be bigger than WWE. And frankly, if that was AEW's aim, if AEW's aim was to be bigger than WWE, then they should probably fold up and shut up shop today, because they would be looking to achieve what is impossible. What AEW should try and be, and what I think at points they have been, but sometimes they've got lost of this goal, is to be a true, viable alternative. Offer something different. Offer something that people that are maybe disenfranchised with WWE or miss older version of WWE or what WWE they perceive as WWE used to be in certain eras. They should try and be that. They should try and be that, and they should try and be, and they can be very successful being that. JB says never say never. I mean, look, I suppose you're right in that. Don't talk in absolutes. Who knows what could happen with WWE from a, scandal point of view. Some scandals, and they've had their fair share. But this is what's kind of wild. With all of the scandals, that have happened to WWE over the last, it should be 4 years now, right? In 2022, it came out about Vince McMahon's retirement and what have you. WWE then went on to have its most successful period since the Monday Night Wars. Arguably even more successful than the late 90s in terms of revenue, tickets sold, and television ratings and what have you. So, historically, with WWE, scandal only makes them stronger. Scandal only makes them stronger and bigger. So, I don't know. But you never know. Like you say, maybe TKO one day sells it, and then I don't know. So, something could happen. I suppose people would have previously said there would never be a second big company that could compete with WWE, and I suppose there is to an extent AEW, but some people would say they're not really competing, and I don't think they should compete with WWE. That's what kind of frustrates me with the counter programming that WWE does, because they don't need to do it. I don't see AEW as a threat in that regard. They do. But I think if you counter-program or you do some of the things that they have done to counter-program AEW, then I think you have to admit that they are like a rival, and they'll say that they're not, and it's like, well, if they're not a rival, why are you trying to do stuff on the same day as them? I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think that's just business, that's just business, that's just entertainment. That's, your independent local coffee shop has been on the street forever, and then Starbucks comes into town, and they've got brand recognition, and they can sell it cheaper than that store can. It's just how it goes. That's just the way the world works. But at the same time, it's also like Starbucks going, we're not competing with that coffee store. And you go, well, you are. And it's fine to admit that you are. There's nothing wrong with that, So, yes, it's just, yeah. But anyway, going to the Cody Rhodes-Roman Reigns WrestleMania match. Allegedly, it's off. We'll see. There's still plenty of time to go for that one. What I did want to watch, and by the way, if you haven't already, click the like button, and also be sure to subscribe. I wanted to watch a little bit of the interview that Chris Van Vliet did with The Miz. Now, I don't know if you guys watched this. I've seen some clips going around, but I wanted just to watch some parts of it and sort of go through. Where do I want to go from? Maybe let's start at this bit where it says The Miz deserves more respect. Maybe that. Because there was a bit when, he was talking about getting kicked out of the locker room and all that. Maybe I should go there. Did The Miz ever want to quit on his dream? Maybe we should go with that part. Because I have seen a lot of people talking about this, and The Miz is a really interesting character when you think about his career and his longevity, certainly in WWE as well. It's nothing short of remarkable, isn't it, when you're considering where he was at one point. So let's go here. Let's go here and
net/Chris. With all the bumps along the way, all the bumps in the road, did you ever feel like you wanted to quit?
Ever feel like I wanted to quit? I think there's always a side of you that, like, I'll give you an example. Deep South Wrestling. Every day. I'm
not surprised. Did you hear the horror stories about Deep South? Deep South is like when Bill DeMott was the trainer. Now, obviously, he eventually ended up being the trainer for the Performance Center before he got sacked again for the same reasons that he was let go the first time. But yeah, he was in Deep South. If you just go to Bill DeMott's Wikipedia, like it says, he became a full-time trainer for WWE, began working in the company's Deep South Wrestling Developmental Territory. DeMott also worked as a booker for DSW, although his direction in the promotion received criticism, most notably by former WWE developmental wrestler. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. His name's Kenny Omega, who soon requested to be released from his developmental contract due to his poor treatment. DeMott was released from his WWE contract on January 19th, 2007, with Dr. Tom Pritchard taking place as DSW's head trainer, and a million people got so many positive things to say about Tom Pritchard as one of the best pro wrestling trainers around. And this is when you get into some, allegations made against him during his time there. In March 2015, Devin Nicholson described an incident from 2006 that DeMott was involved in while he was the head trainer for WWE's Deep South Wrestling Developmental Territory. Nicholson described an incident in which Drew Hankinson, now if you don't recognize that name, that is Luke Gallows, Doc Gallows of the Good Brothers, Bullet Club, etc. Drew Hankinson was completely naked in the ring for a long period of time and gave naked stink faces to Zack Ryder and Melissa Cotes, also known as, Super Genie. She was a partner of Sabu. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. Matt Cardona recently returned to WWE. But yes, Drew Hankinson, Luke Gallows, completely naked, doing naked stink faces to Zack Ryder, while DeMott held jelly donuts over their faces. The wrestlers agreed to do this with other talent encouraging them in order to get out of regular training for that day. DeMott refuted the notion that it was his idea, stating that other trainees came up with this because they wanted to skip the session. That was the kind of shit, allegedly, that was going on in Deep South. I'd want to quit too. Just to put an end on that.
And I said this before, but I don't think anyone understands. Every day, my body was in my mind. Like, your mind is like, it's like if your body's hurt and you're tired and you're worn out and the next day you have to go do the same exact thing, your mind starts playing tricks on you, and it starts telling you, like, man, your body is hurting. Like, and then you're trying to watch as much By the way, I was trying to watch as much VHS tapes as I possibly could because I couldn't go on YouTube and watch matches and learn from it and that kind of stuff. I had like old school, like headlock putting a headlock on for a half an hour. Like, that did not work in this. But I understood what the headlock was and why the person was doing it. But you'd watch this match and you'd go, they just did a headlock and this crowd is going nuts for a headlock. I go do that in the crowd. This crowd's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? A headlock? Come on, give me something more. Like, we want more. But, I'd watch these VHS tapes just to try to get better, And so And then going through that and trying to think of like, oh man, am I doing everything I possibly can? And I'm doing it and I'm still not good. I'm still not getting to where.
I mean, the funny thing is, some people would say today, the Miz is an interesting, wasn't he? Because he's a good hand at this point, right? He's a good hand in the ring. Can't doubt that, right? The Miz is good hand in the ring. Certainly, no doubt about that. But I don't know if he would ever say he was a good wrestler. Well, no, I mean, in terms of like great matches. He's a good hand in the ring. His strength was always personality and promo. Always personality and promo. I remember during that time of like, what year was it? About 2009, 2008, when he started doing the dirt sheet stuff with John Morrison, when they were the tag team champions on WWE.com, and that got over and popular. And he did well with John Morrison in the tag team at the time. And then he came to Raw. The one thing that was holding him back initially, one was his look. He had the goofiest in-ring gear at all. It was ridiculous. And he changed to trunks, and then started cutting more serious programs, and he promos rather. And then it was good. The matches itself have been amazing. I think the Miz, he's now in that territory, I think, where he has just been around forever, and he literally has done everything there is to do in WWE, near enough. He's won the WWE Championship twice. He's main event at WrestleMania, won Money in the Bank, Intercontinental Champion a bunch of times, Tag Team Champion a bunch of times, US Champion a bunch of times. He's done it, hasn't he? He's done it. And it's kind of at the point now, like we saw it Friday on SmackDown, where he was involved in the opening segment with Randy Orton. And he attacked him and wanted him with the RKO, and you just sort of go, well, he's just kind of there at this point. I'm not sure what more mileage you get out of him now, unless he took like a radical big swing with his character and did something completely different. But I don't know what that would be. It's always been kind of versions of him being like a Hollywood star, really. He's like a reality star, then a TV star, then like a Hollywood star, quiet on the set, the stunt double, the leading man with the leading lady and Maurice. He had the Miz Taraj, that kind of, again, celebrity. So he's kind of done every aspect of it. The Miz character is about modern celebrity, whether it's reality, whether it's TV, whether it's film, whether it's just, paparazzi and all that kind of stuff. He's done it. And I just don't know what like the next thing for him would be at this point. But the fact that he is still around today and still at a high level is a credit to him. And nobody would have expected that from where he was.
To where I want to be. I'm not up on the top level. And when I get to the top level, will I ever be there? I mean, I remember in UPW, I remember sleeping in my bed and waking up and going, man, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, I go to practice all the time. I spend 6 hours a week practicing UPW, taking bumps for nothing, for $0. I'm paying them for me to get to hurt every day, to learn this art of professional wrestling. And then I'm going to perform in front of 25 people. Meanwhile, I got thousands watching. I was like, man, just keep going.
That's how it
just
works.
Keep going. Keep doing it. And then there's something in the back of my head. Just keep going. There's a bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? What's the bigger picture? Keep going. Keep going. Go to Deep South.
And the thing is, that's not even just a wrestling thing. That's just a life thing. You know what I mean? It's a bit like this. You know what I mean? When you start doing videos on YouTube, we start streaming, and we say this all the time, even in like big conversations with big creators and stuff like that. Nobody's got a divine right to an audience. Nobody's got a divine right for people to tune in and watch them, or people to pay to see them, or people just to watch them in general, even if it's for free. You have to give people a reason. And also, you've got to be consistent. You've got to work. When you start a YouTube channel, no one's going to watch. The majority of the videos that you do or streams you do will maybe have like one view. And you'll be really happy to have that view and wonder, who the fuck's watching this? And the only way you get better is doing it consistently. The only way you grow an audience. Again, is doing it consistently, and that's just how it goes. It's how it works, and it's no different for wrestling. You're not you just think you can walk in a main event WrestleMania? No, it takes time. You got to work at it, and then get a bit of luck as well.
Every time I'm like, man, one more day, bigger picture. Then first getting into WWE, getting kicked out of the locker room.
Yeah,
what am I doing?
I wanted
here?
to see.
I'm a grown man. I'm a grown man, a WWE superstar, and I'm changing in a broom closet. I'm going to bathroom with fans, and fans are going, hey, I think I saw The Miz just go in the stall. And meanwhile, my music's about to play in 5 minutes. Was there ever a time I wanted to quit? Yeah, but I don't quit. I've never quit anything. Challenges, I retired. I told them, I was like, this is my last challenge. I did the final Inferno 2 because I wanted to say, hey, this is it. We're done with this. And then I don't quit. And so, but man, there are so many times where I was just like, why are you doing this? What are we doing? If they're kicking you out of the locker room, they're not going to teach you inside the ring. But I just kept going because I was like, I know I can do this.
Did you have any idea of when you might be invited back into the locker room?
No.
Did you think it'd be a week, 2?
No.
A month?
I had no idea. I knew the person that told me that, hey, you're kicked out of the locker room. He said, you're not coming in until I say so.
Was that The Undertaker?
No. No. That person went away.
I mean, that's one way of putting it, isn't it? I mean, just for full transparency, the man he is referring to, or the person he is referring to there, is Chris Benoit. He is not. This is not like an ex-WWE superstar, i.e., he doesn't work for the company anymore. This is someone that is deceased. And also saying he went away is a very mild way of saying how it ended for Chris Benoit and sadly his family. So Miz is just very much sidestepping that one there, and I don't blame him. But he went away. In reality, he M-worded his family, and then checked out. So that's the person he's referring to there, by the way.
And so then when that person went away, I was like, oh boy, how am I going to get back in the locker room? I'm never going to. So I had to wait another 3 months before.
I hope that's not the first thought, by the way, Miz, as well. Jeez. You know what I mean?
Before I asked Taker, I was like, man, I've been out of the locker room for a long time. He goes, oh, you have? I went, yeah, I've been out for 6 months. What'd you do? I ate a piece of chicken in the locker room and it got all over. And I still believe it did not, but other people will tell you differently. Sure. And they can have their opinions. That is fine. I was under a microscope of let's get this guy. And a lot of times in a locker room, someone could, he had a piece of chicken over my thing. And, oh man, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then another guy walks in. Oh, you ate chicken over his bag? Oh, look at that.
To be fair, I mean, maybe I'm alone in this regard, yeah. But I don't know. If it was me, and it was my bag, and someone was eating chicken over it, and they got chicken over my bag, I'd be pretty pissed off with that. Now, would I go to the length of this person cannot change in this locker room? I'd be like, that's a bit extra. You know what I mean? Maybe a fine. Maybe go to wrestler's court. Maybe, I don't know. But it'll you've got to get changed in a broom closet. It's a bit much. But if someone ate chicken over my bag and it got on my bag, I'd be pretty pissed. I'd be pretty pissed off about that. But also, I don't know how you can necessarily dispute about whether it is or isn't getting on someone's bag. Miz says there he definitely doesn't. It definitely wasn't. I feel like you would know. That to me seems obvious. You know what I mean? that seemed to me is obvious about whether the chicken is on your bag or not. But okay, I know I'm getting caught up in it.
Look at that. He got another guy walks in. He did what? Then another guy is outside the locker room, and then they hear it. He ate chicken over it, and he got it all over the place. Then
Wow. These things happen.
By the time the telephone game played, I was throwing chicken all over the locker room. I was smearing it on stuff. Like, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if he had done that, he probably wouldn't have got kicked out. I mean, smearing it on the wall is kind of badass.
So I went to take her. I said, I got ate chicken over a bag. And
how silly is that sentence?
It is a silly sentence.
Yeah. It's real. I'm glad you're laughing. I'm glad you're laughing at my torment.
But you
for
must
6 months of being kicked out of a locker room.
But you have to realize how ridiculous that must have been.
It was so ridiculous.
Why doesn't he have a plate or something like that? Why doesn't he? It's a piece of chicken. Now, granted, I don't know. It could be a variety of different things. In my head, I'm thinking piece of chicken. Even if it was like a chicken breast, you eat it in like a little container, wouldn't you? Perhaps. In my head, I've just got this image of him walking around with like chicken leg or something like that. You know what I mean? Like on the bone. But I'm probably picturing this wrong.
I'm a grown man, and people are always like, "Why don't you fight him? Why don't you stick up for yourself?" Because back then, if I would have done something like that, I probably would have been fired, or I looked at it as, if I stand up to this person who is a locker room leader and very respected, and the reality guy steps up and talks and mouths off of that person, they're never going to teach me. I need them to teach me.
That is an interesting way of looking at it. That is a very interesting way of looking at it. And to be honest with you, that's probably why he's been so successful and he's been there for so long, because I don't think a lot of people would have that mindset. The mindset would probably be like, I just don't want to fuck up. You know what I mean? I want to keep my job. I want to keep my job, and I don't want to be fired. His mindset is, I want to get better. You know what I mean? I want to get better. I want to be the best that I can be, and with this sort of improvement in quality will come more success and their respect, which that takes a lot of foresight. I don't think a lot of people necessarily think like that. That's proper foresight of going, like, I need to get these on my side, not because I want to keep my job, just because I want to get better, which is that's pretty smart.
They're going to teach me. I need them to teach me. I'm not going to learn this on my, like, these new up and coming NXT superstars.
Big up, Jordan. Appreciate you joining us.
As much as they're going to learn, and trust me, they have an excellent training facility and excellent trainers, but they're going to learn so much more by being in the ring with people that have been there. Cody Rhodes. When you get in the ring with Roman Reigns, you get in the ring with these guys, it's another level that you can't teach in front of your colleagues. Like, you can't teach at a school. You have to teach it in front of an audience. And it takes reps and reps and reps and reps. They'll tell you it. They'll be the first to tell you it. And so I knew I needed reps with stars, with main eventers, so I could wrestle like a main eventer. So I can watch all the footage I want of it, but there's a difference between watching it and actually doing it. Everyone can watch it. Not everyone can do it. And you'll see superstars that you'll be like, how did they not make it? How did this person or this is the reason. Oh, creative wasn't there. Oh, this wasn't this. Nah. You get 1 minute on a show, you better make the best of that minute. You get 2 minutes, you get 3, whatever it is, you need to be found over. Some people are like, oh, well, that person was chosen. You got the rocket up there.
So this is where Chris Van Vliet is good. I know sometimes Chris Van Vliet gets a lot of shit because he's not too necessarily picky about who he interviews. And some people think that, certain people he shouldn't be talking to, or he goes too, light on some people that have got, that are more polarizing than others. But what he is very good at, and what you can see here, is he is really good at asking just very straightforward questions that aren't very long. Because this is something that I struggle with whenever I'm doing interviews or, talking to people, is I can take a while to ask a question. He's very good at asking short questions and then just letting who he's talking to talk. And that is a skill. It's a skill just to ask a question. Don't interrupt. That's where I'm bad as well, interrupting, because you just get you completely, in your head of, right, I've got to get this next point out before I forget. I don't want to forget this point. This is a good point I'm trying to make here. Chris Van Vliet is very good at just ask the question, let them talk. Let them talk. And then when I hear something that I think is interesting, I'll remember it and I'll come back to it, but I won't interrupt. And you hear this with The Miz. He's just going on for like a minute or so and without Chris Van Vliet interrupting. And it's engaging stuff.
No, there's a reason that person did it, because they can understand and get to where they need to be. And when you have that WWE championship on your shoulder, there's a ton of pressure. As hard as Deep South was, as hard as UPW was, as hard as being kicked out of the locker room was, nothing is as hard as being the WWE champion, having this company on your back, $1 billion company on your back. Cody's got like an immense amount of pressure and he's succeeding at it. Not everyone can succeed with that pressure. Most can't. Most will say, oh, I can do it. And most will complain about the fact that I could have done it, but they fall. They do. They just do. And it happens. And you see it all the time and you wonder, what happened? What happened? I know what happened. You got, like, people like watching will never know because they don't understand the pressure of what a WWE championship is and what it does. Now, granted, you have a lot of help. You have a lot of people going at it. But if you're a champion that is like not, I feel like the champion needs to be the hardest worker in the room. And if he's not the hardest worker in the room, obviously, the people that are up and coming need to be that person. Need to like make,
I was going to say, because that's
whatever
not always
title
the
it
case.
is.
It should be the case that the champion's the hardest worker in the room, but it doesn't always work like that as well, in fairness, does it? I mean, we were just talking about earlier on about the possibility of, Roman being the champion again, but him being a part-time talent. And as a babyface, that's not possible. Now, does your schedule... Well, I suppose this is the other part of it. Does your schedule dictate how hard you are, how hard of a worker you are? Because some will say, well, that doesn't really mean anything. The fact that I have worked so hard for so many years has afforded me to this point where I can now, have this kind of schedule. But I'm a very hard worker and I draw a lot of money and there's still pressure on me.
The title, because we need something on the live events that people are going to pay money to see if that person isn't on the live events.
Did you feel the pressure when you cashed in and became WWE?
We'll leave that one there. I did want to talk about this before we do wrap things up. We've been live for about an hour and 20. So we'll go live for an hour and 30. I did want to bring this up because I just thought it's quite interesting. I know it was something that was going around over the last, sort of week. I know that Meltzer talked about it in The Observer and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of debunked. There was this going around about a possible concern for the venue for the Royal Rumble taking place at the end of the month. Now, of course, as the post says there, Royal Rumble's taking place on January 31st, taking place in Saudi Arabia. First time the Royal Rumble's taking place outside of North America. And they're building a venue specifically for the Rumble. They're building a venue specifically for the Rumble. You can see it right there on the right, just here. There is a video. There is sound in there. Actually, let me see if I turn the sound off on it. What would this look like? You won't really be able to see. Does it actually it doesn't really show it that much, to be fair. So we'll just go back. You can see the picture there. Anyway, there's been these concerns and worries about it not being ready. Is the venue for the Royal Rumble even going to be ready in a couple of weeks' time? And this is a big concern for people. And I know that, like I said, Meltzer and others were reporting this. I think this is something that's being made far bigger of a deal than it actually is. It does seem crazy on the face of it that anyone would be building a venue specifically just for a premium live event. But the Saudi PIF, they've got history with this. I remember quite a few. If you follow sort of the boxing scene and you know obviously how influential Turki Al-Sheikh has been in pro boxing and obviously even in this sort of celebrity influencer boxing as well. Some of the Jake Paul fights have taken place in Saudi and what have you. they've built venues just for those boxing shows, and they get them up very quickly. And I remember Eddie Hearn talking about how he had meetings with Turkey Al Sheikh, and there was just nothing there. And they said, oh, there'll be a venue there in a couple of months. And they said, that's impossible. It's not going to happen. And then when the day comes, that venue's there and it's ready to go. So I don't think that there's any concern about it not being ready in time. If it wasn't, for whatever reason, they would just move it to somewhere else in Riyadh. But that venue will be ready in time. I don't think there's going to be any concern about that. It's going to be interesting with it. Obviously, we'll be live. We'll be doing the watch along. It'll be a better time than usual for myself. Maybe not so much for in the United States. It'll be in the afternoon, I think. As far as like early predictions on that, on the men's side of things, now given the fact that Cody's not the champion anymore, and it doesn't look like he's going to be competing for the title at the Rumble if those qualifying matches are anything to go by. Remember that there are these qualifying matches this coming Friday on SmackDown. There's 4 of them. The winners of each of those matches will then go into a Fatal 4-Way match at Saturday night's main event. The winner of that will be the number 1 contender for the WWE Championship. And Cody Rhodes isn't advertised for any of those matches. So it would suggest that maybe Cody's going to be in the Rumble. Which, look, if Cody Rhodes is in the Royal Rumble, I know he won it back-to-back. It makes him someone that they absolutely could have win, and have tie it with Stone Cold as the person to win it 3 times, because of course Austin currently holds the record. Cody had done it back to back for the first time since Austin, so he very much could have won it the 3rd time. Bron Breakker, I think, has to be considered one of the favorites. Just because he lost the world title match against Punk recently on Raw, I still think there's a really strong possibility he challenges for the title at WrestleMania and wins it. You go back to when the Vision turned on Seth Rollins on that episode of Raw in Australia. At the time, there was this feeling of, why don't you just put the belt on Bron Breakker now? Clearly, that's the plan. You just had to do things a little bit earlier because Seth Rollins is injured. And the pushback from WWE at the time was, we've got a plan. We've got a plan for that. And we want to make sure it's the right time, and we want to make sure that it's on the biggest platform possible. It's in the biggest space possible, and it gets the most eyeballs possible. And that, to me, says WrestleMania. So I think that Bron Breakker could absolutely be one of the favorites to win it. And WWE's in a territory where they need to build stars. Cena's left. He's not coming back in terms of an active in-ring wrestler. This year, we know AJ Styles was retiring. Brock Lesnar's maybe retiring as well. So WWE needs to build stars, and they're in the process of it with people like Bron Breakker. So win the Rumble, win the title at WrestleMania. Right? There you go. You make yourself a new star there. As far as other names that potentially could, be also considered for Rumble victories, I think Roman Reigns, if they are going to do Roman versus Cody, and like Ibo was kind of suggesting earlier on, they may be taking the scenic route to get there. You could have Cody win the title back at Elimination Chamber and Roman win the Rumble, and then they're going to be facing off at Mania again for the title. That's a possibility. So you'd maybe look at those sort of 3. Maybe a sort of a dark horse being Obafemi. I pitched this during the Raw watch along that I did on Monday. What about a situation? We've seen these vignettes, with Obafemi on every single WWE show, whether it be Raw, SmackDown, and no one really knows what roster he's going to. I think the expectation is it's going to be Raw. What if they did something? You want to talk about building stars, making new stars, getting people's attention, right? What if we don't see Obafemi until the Royal Rumble match? All we know is that he's coming soon, and he recently vacated the NXT Championship. He left it in the ring. NXT New Year's Evil. The new champion, the next champion, is going to be crowned in a 6-person ladder match in February. That was announced yesterday on NXT. What if we don't see Obafemi until the Royal Rumble match? He enters, throws basically everyone out, wins the thing, and he's going to WrestleMania for a world title. That would be unexpected. That would be unprecedented. Well, he technically has wrestled on the main roster. He wrestles against Cody, but first time he's officially on the main roster, as a main roster talent, he wins the Royal Rumble and goes on to WrestleMania. That's how you make a star, isn't it? That is how you make a bona fide star. And there were those reports that said that the reason why he lost the NXT title in the way that he did, i.e. vacating it in the middle of the ring and not losing a match to anybody, that was by strict request from WWE Creative. WWE Creative reportedly told Shawn Michaels, told NXT, we do not want Obafemi being defeated by anyone. Which says to me very big plans, and it's tried and tested. You drop the championship, you lose it on the way out because it's NXT. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really translate to the main roster that much. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But they're that protective of the Obafemi character and him not losing that maybe that's because there's a really big victory on the horizon for him as well. So that's a kind of a dark horse, and I'd be all for that. I think that'd be something really interesting. So there would be my sort of 4 on the men's side of things, where you go Bron Breakker probably the favorite. Then you get Cody and Roman, depending on if they're in the match at all. And then, of course, Obafemi at the end. As far as the women's side of things, obviously you have your natural favorites that are always there. Your Rhea Ripley's, your Charlotte Flairs, Io Sky. I feel like it's Liv Morgan's year. We've heard those reports, haven't we, of 2026 being a really big year for Liv Morgan. She is such a big star for WWE right now. She's in a film that comes out, was it Bad Lieutenant Tokyo? That was considered to be a big role for her. She filmed it last year, came back and then got injured, unfortunately, pretty much straight away. She's made it to the final 2 a couple of times. Final 2 when it was Rhea Ripley. Was she in the final 2 when Bayley won it? I forget, but she's been in the final 2 a couple of times. She's a really big star for WWE and a really big deal. And they've already teased her facing off against Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. I think that's the one. As far as other people that could maybe, like I say, be dark horses and win it, maybe Io Sky, because she hasn't won it before, and obviously we know the popularity of her, and she was Women's World Champion last year, retained the title at WrestleMania. So that would probably be my 2 picks. Maybe they'll be the final 2. Io Sky and also Liv Morgan. Maybe that's what it's going to be. So I'll probably go with those as sort of my picks. But obviously, closer to the time we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at that as well. Just seeing if there's any other news stories that we should be checking out before we wrap things up for the first episode of WN365 Live. As I mentioned, we won't be live on Friday because we'll be doing a watch-along and post-show for SmackDown, because that's in London. So that'll be a favourable time. We will be live, though, for tomorrow, as I mentioned, for the Impact, TNA Thursday Night Impact on AMC premiere on, I think, TNA's TNA Plus streaming service, I think, but we will be live. And if anything changes with that, of course, like I said, I'll let you know. Some things have been announced in the last few days about it. One was this, about Bully Ray. He's going to be on commentary. It says, in case you missed it, TNA Hall of Famer Bully Ray will be the special guest commentator for the main event as TNA Impact premieres on AMC this Thursday from the Curtis Caldwell Center in Dallas, Texas. That main event will most likely be that TNA World Championship match. There was a kind of pitch that was, the sort of suggestion was that it was going to be, obviously we know that it's going to be Mike Santana versus Frankie Kazarian for the TNA World Championship. AJ's going to be there. There was this kind of pitch that maybe AJ actually instead wrestles at Genesis, and he's going to face Frankie Kazarian, not for the TNA World title, because Mike Santana's going to be the champion by that point, and maybe Styles is going to confront Frankie Kazarian after the match. Which is possible. I guess that's possible. But I don't know. I just feel like at this point, I feel at this point I just don't see Styles wrestling one more match. But then, which kind of bums me out, because I do feel like, he should be able to, AJ Styles should be able to do what he wants. In his last few months of being an active in-ring talent, why is WWE so desperate for him not to wrestle in TNA? If he wants to do it, then just do it. Whether or not that actually happens, we shall see. A bit of an update on Seth Rollins as well. A lot of these things will go into more depth tomorrow on the news video. But he's provided a bit of an update on his recovery as well, saying it's coming along. I had surgery about almost 3 months ago now. I can do most normal things like wash my hair and, scratch my armpit. It's weird that that's the second thing he thought of, but he says, and all those things, so it's good. Still got time. I don't know exactly when we're going to come back, but I'm making progress in the right direction. Now, he did say previously, when talking about when he would be coming back, he did previously state that he was thinking maybe around just before WrestleMania. It's possible, and this is WWE. They always tend to like overshoot people's recovery. So a lot of the time, they will say, oh, he's going to be out of action for 6 months, and they come back in 4. So I guess it's entirely possible he could be back in time for WrestleMania. Sometimes when they are kind of, cutting it fine, it can be a thing of, where they just save it for after WrestleMania, because you do always need a big surprise post WrestleMania. So maybe, maybe he could be on the Raw after WrestleMania. Maybe that's at a time, because think about it, this would probably be the right sort of direction for this. If Bron Breakker wins the Royal Rumble, right? Let's say Bron Breakker wins the Royal Rumble and then goes on to WrestleMania to become World Heavyweight Champion, right? Goes on to become World Heavyweight Champion. The next Monday on Raw, he should probably be the main event of that show. He's out there with Paul Heyman. That the vision, we talk about, we're called the vision, but the real vision was this, what we're getting right here. Middle of this ring, Bron Breakker, World Heavyweight Championship around his waist. Once again, Paul Heyman has managed another world champion in WWE. And there's nobody now that can stop us. The whole vision are there. They're celebrating. That's when Seth Rollins comes out. Seth Rollins comes out. Maybe he attacks the Vision or whatever. Crowd goes crazy. That's how they end the show. That's probably where the value is, really. If Rollins is cutting it fine and he's not sure he can be back in time for Mania, or he's not sure he can be back to have a match at WrestleMania, then then maybe that's the right thing to do. Wait until after Mania. Wait until Bron Breakker's the champion, and then have Rollins interrupt and attack, and kind of. And then you've got your post-WrestleMania feud that you can probably go all the way till SummerSlam, perhaps, as well. And that can be your main event of SummerSlam, or one of them, in Minneapolis. So that would be, I would think, the way of planning things out. Whether or not that's the direction that they go in, maybe Rollins, like I said, will be back already by WrestleMania time, and maybe it might be part of the plan for him to face off against some member of the Vision. Time will only tell. But there you go, guys. First episode of WN365 Live. Really appreciate everyone that tuned in live this evening. Like I said, we're hopefully going to build up this audience and get into a really nice pattern of streaming live 3 times a week. Like I said earlier on, we will be live with this show Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 8 p.m. UK time, unless there is some change because of schedule or because... for instance, there's the wrestling show on. So Friday, we will not be live for this show, WN365 Live, but we will be live with a watch-along and a post-show for SmackDown. Monday, we will not be live with this show because we'll be live with a watch-along and a post-show for Raw. Wednesday, we'll be live again with WN365 Live. Next Friday, where's WWE next Friday? Are they still in Europe? Because it's not the entire month of January, because eventually they go back to... Canada. So Monday, Belfast, Friday, Montreal. So next week, I won't be live on. Well, I will be live Monday because we'll be doing a watch along and a post show for Monday Night Raw from Belfast, and then Wednesday we'll be live with WN365 Live. Friday we'll be live with WN365 Live. Saturday we'll then be live with Saturday night's main event as well. So. We're going to be live actually 4 times next week, in addition to your daily news videos and your countdown videos. So like I said, it's just extra. It's extra. But I want to be streaming more on the channel. I want to be interacting with you guys more often, and hopefully that we can get to that point. If you haven't already, click the like button. See what people are saying here in the chat. Don says, of course, TNA is number 2. AEW is number 1 in the United States. Wow. WWE is number 1, isn't it? It's just, there's no question. Even tribalism aside, globally, AEW, New Japan are 1, then CMLL, and then TNA, then EO, ROH. Well, WWE does not exist. Yes, so we'll be doing those. Will be next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And as you can see there in the bottom scroller, big up to members of the WN365 roster. If you do wish to become a member of the roster, you can do so. All you got to do is click the join button. Links in the video description as well. You get your badges, your emojis, your exclusive members only perks and content, including being on the scroller for the roster appreciation for all of these live shows that we are going to be doing as well. Like I said, for the next show, I've got to remember to get a subscriber box so we can see where we're at any points when it comes to subscribers. And yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So it's a new chapter in the channel. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in as per usual, or hopefully per usual. Click the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Check out the videos that have gone up today as well. We had a news video and a countdown video for tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite, Maximum Carnage. And we'll have coverage of that tomorrow as well. And we'll be back live on Friday with a Friday Night SmackDown watch-along and post-show. Appreciate you guys as always. Enjoy your Wednesday. And I'll speak for you again very, very soon. I'm out of it. Have a good one. Peace.